Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan. I am 27 years old, and I am a former alcoholic. I had my last drop of alcohol around July 2nd or 3rd of this year, the year being 2021. The current date is actually, I believe, September. Let me look here. Uh, September 26th of 2021. So getting close to 3 months sober. I was really just wanting to make this just as, I guess, my story. Maybe somebody will find some use out of it, some sort of encouragement. Uh, just kind of something like that. The past few weeks haven't been the best for me. There's some days I'm like, God, I wish I could have a fucking drink. I'd kill some days just to have a fucking drink, but I know I can't go back to it. Because I'm pretty sure I've already fucked my liver more than I would like to admit, and probably other body or other organs that I've already messed up. So I guess what I'll do first, I want to get into the post alcoholism stuff, and then I'll get into my story and everything else. So after, or really everything leading up to July 2nd or 3rd of this year being the last time I had alcohol, I had already tried quitting so many times. Most of the times I would quit, I could barely make it more than 3 days. Because one thing people that get into alcoholism, and something I didn't know, I knew about withdrawals. I did not know how much it fucking sucks. It is awful. Even if you have minor withdrawals, it is just awful. It lasts for anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks, depending on the severity of your alcoholism. And for me, the main withdrawal symptoms last probably about a week, week and a half. But at least some of the more physical things, not being able to sleep, um, night sweats, that was a pretty big one for me, and just insomnia, night terrors, just complete fucking nightmares that make you want to sleep so desperately some nights, but at the same time you're scared of whatever fucked up shit is going to come from those dreams or nightmares, whatever. Uh, that's something really people don't talk, or at least I've never heard of. Maybe you have, and maybe you knew about it going into it. Who knows? But those were kind of the things that made it very hard to stop drinking. And also, another thing that I did not know of is, if I'm remembering the term right, is kindling. Whereas, let's say you stop drinking and then you get a certain amount of time sober, say a week, and then you end up drinking again. And you repeat that cycle over and over and over again. It gets harder and harder to stop. I'm pretty sure that's the process and the name of it. And that's basically kind of what I experienced. And luckily, I was able to get out of it. I mean, hell, I'm at 3 months. Hopefully, I can stay off um, at this point and just never go back. But yeah, up until that point, I had tried quitting so many times, and just I'm glad I'm off of it, even if I feel like shit or really a lot of the time after it. Even being close to 3 months sober, I still feel like shit a lot of days. Uh, I guess the only thing I can come up with is uh, the alcohol, and just how much I consumed over 3 years must have really messed up my mind, and just a lot of other things with me. Because if I were to compare sober me 2017, before I started drinking, I was already dealing with, depression, anxiety, uh, and whatnot. But comparing that to now being sober, it's way worse now. So, am I still glad that I quit? Yes, and I want to keep it that way if possible, and hopefully I don't fuck it up. Um, Trying to think if there's really anything else I want to add to it. Maybe I'll think about it. We'll if I think about it, I'll bring it up. Hopefully, I don't get too sidetracked. That is something I do tend to do when telling stories and whatnot. So I'll try my best not to do that. So since I already talked about uh, me being sober in 2017, we'll start there, um, and kind of just move along the timeline. Just kind of go from one point to the next, and just kind of go down that road and revisit all that awfulness. So going through it, like I said, I was dealing with depression and anxiety all, for quite a while up until that point. I was on antidepressants at that point as well, going from 2017 into 2018 whenever I did start drinking. And I'm pretty sure they did help, but a lot of the times I did feel kind of numb, where it was just like, I don't know whether or not I felt happy or sad or anything at all. Uh, and that's kind of where the alcohol kind of came in. At least it made me feel something. And I guess that's really the reason I even got started with it. It's just really that. It just made me feel just something or anything at all. And it got carried away pretty quickly. In the early part of 2018, I had started drinking uh, Red's harder cider or whatever. It's basically, you could call it a beer. I don't know if most people would call it that, but that's basically what I started with. And then over the months after starting, I then ended up switching to liquor. Started with rum, uh, and it kind of just snowballed from there and just got worse and worse. I never drank while I was at work. Every basically The only time I would drink is at night, and that's also kind of one of the other reasons I drink is because of my brain and just not being able to shut shit off sometimes. Really, a lot of the time, it helped me to sleep. In the but the problem is in the process of doing it or drinking to sleep. Also, I got just completely, I wouldn't say super shit faced, but a lot of nights I would. Um, Not as much in the early times, uh, in early 2018, whenever I started. Uh, Probably, I think January was whenever I had my first actual drop of alcohol. And then by July, I was drinking about every single night. I would come home and I would play games and just get drunk. That's basically all I did. Uh, Trying to think as to really where or what happened at that point. Because a lot, this happened, like, this is, you're talking 3 years ago at this point, and one thing alcohol does, it fucks with your memory, that's for sure. Because some of those nights, I remember I would wake up the next day and be like, the hell did I even do the previous night? Or did I do anything stupid? Or uh, any, you know, anything like that. Um, Luckily, I wasn't really the type to drunk text. Well, I did a couple of times, but not like a whole lot. Um, Trying to think if there was anything else I would do. Nothing really comes to the top of my head, but probably will as we go through this. Um, so pretty much middle of 2018, just you might as well just call me an alcoholic at that point because that's just where it really started to snowball. I was drinking so much, uh, or I was drinking quite a bit of rum. And the funny thing is, I ended up switching jobs at that point. I was working at Walmart, um, and then switched jobs to work in IT, which is what my degree was in, which I worked at a help, or basically it was a help desk job. I was tier one and, you know, took inbound calls to help people with their IT issues and whatnot. The one thing I was lucky with enough with that is that the people were, well, generally nice. I didn't really have much of an issue with anybody um, until a couple people a little bit later. I mean, I never really went off on anybody, but it was an all right job. I mean, overall. Uh, and even though I got this new job and everything, I was still drinking. Uh, it just it got worse and worse. Uh, I can't tell you exactly in numbers of amounts at this time because it's really hard to say how much I was drinking. Um, but I would say I was going to the liquor store probably 2 to 3 times every week at this point. And this lasted pretty much up until 2019. And I was just going to the liquor store more and more uh, as time went on. In which at one point I switched from drinking rum to bourbon, and that was basically my drink of choice. And that's basically what I drank pretty much almost every night up until I quit. I would do some other stuff. I would try other stuff, but really bourbon is about as much as I would drink. Um, and really, just to give the reason I'm bringing this up is to give context as to how much I was drinking, to give you an idea. Because one thing um, people also don't really mention or don't really realize is that when you're an alcoholic and you drink over a prolonged period of time, you need more and more of it as your body builds a tolerance. And generally, at probably 2019, early 2019, I'd say I was probably drinking about, I'm trying to think, probably 300 to 350 milliliters of 100 proof bourbon every single night. Uh, and I literally do mean every single night, whether I was off that night or whether I had work the next day. Um, yeah, I was drinking. And those hangovers they were quite hell. Uh, some of the hangovers were so bad. I didn't really miss work. I don't think I ever missed work due to them. Somehow I pulled it off. I don't know how the hell I did. Uh, and I remember just going into work some of those days, and I'd just be taking calls, and in the middle while I was waiting for something to install, or it would be in between calls, uh, I would just lean back in my chair, look up at the ceiling, and I'm just like, I feel awful, and I just don't enjoy life. I want to just fucking kill myself and all this other stuff. It was awful. Um, Pretty bad part of my life, but sadly it does get worse. So at this point, I did actually end up going to therapy. Uh, Hold on. Excuse me. And I brought all this stuff up to my therapist, and I did try working on it. I did try to stop drinking, um, and I think I made it a couple times to about a week or so. Am I thinking of the timeline wrong? Shit, I may have messed up. Um, I might be thinking of. There's no way it was 2018. No, 2019. I can't remember. Some point in all this, like I said, all this is like a blur to me because this has happened 3 years ago on tops of copious amounts of fucking alcohol. But I do remember at one point I did end up going to therapy. I don't remember if it was 2019 or 2018. This was a detail I missed, but that was probably the first time I tried to stop legitimately. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, it had to have been 2019 because I remember I had my schedule change, and that's why I stopped going to therapy. Um, that's why, yeah, it had to have been 2019, early 2019. And, like I said, I made it like a few times, maybe a week, maybe a couple of days sober, and then I would just end up drinking again. And, and somehow I got really lucky at work, and even through all this shit, I got promoted. I ended up going to tier two position, and then I ended up having my schedule change to a point where it made it kind of hard to go to therapy due to my schedule change. I know that sounds like a huge excuse, but at the same time, it was just like, you know, having to work Monday through Friday and then like somehow having to make time, every 2 weeks or so for therapy is at the time, on top of everything, it felt like a huge pain in the ass. And it was just like I didn't want to deal with it at the time. I felt like I was making no progress. I felt like a huge piece of shit. And it was just, I don't even know what else to say about it. Uh, but we'll kind of move on from that. We'll get to the middle of 2019. Uh, and pretty much as time is going on, I am drinking more and more. I think at this point I was probably right at 350 milliliters every night. Uh, I don't really know exactly the increase that or how fast I guess it depends on really how much you drink and what kind of tolerance you build or how fast your body builds a tolerance. Mine felt rather gradual because, like I said, I went from drinking like say 300 milliliters to now it's like middle 2019, even all the way into later 2019, like 350 milliliters of 100 proof bourbon, and it pretty much stayed that way through that whole time. And it just I kept drinking more and more every single night, uh, and pretty much we get into 2020, and this is where shit really well. I don't think I have to really explain 2020 and how shit of a year that was for just about everybody. Um, and pretty much at the start of 2020, I was probably drinking 375 milliliters of this 100 proof bourbon as just an example, um, every single night, and I just did not feel like caring to stop at the point, or at least at that point. Um, but one thing I do remember is in early 2020, I did end up going to my doctor, and I mentioned all this and had some blood work done. Um, I'll never, God, I remember they did the blood work and they were supposed to call me on like a certain day, uh, in which I actually had to call them back on my lunch break, and then they're like, okay, like we'll have to call you back in a couple minutes or whatever. I I remember being so fucking nervous during or waiting for that phone call because I knew it wasn't gonna be good. Um, just in general, I whenever they called me, from what I remember, my liver enzyme levels, if I'm remembering that right, were pretty high. They said it was like really, really high. and said I had a potential of something with my liver being wrong. I don't remember what they said. I believe it was some disease that I had never heard of, but they weren't sure. They wanted me to come back in and get blood work done. Um, and this was around, I believe, early March. So around this time, COVID was starting to spread around quite a bit. And I remember they wanted me to come in, I believe, the next week to get more blood work done, which I said, yeah, like sure I'd come in. And I was just hoping that just get it done and hopefully nothing. It's not as bad as I thought. I went to go do said blood work, but then like I said, COVID hit, and then it just. I went in for the appointment, and they didn't necessarily turn me away. They wanted me to reschedule, and they said they would call me, and I was like, okay, and went on my way and never got that phone call, and I never made the attempt to reschedule myself. So yeah, that's another one against me there. As I wanted to get better, but at the same time, I didn't uh, want to get better. And then once COVID was really, really starting to fucking spread around, middle of March, started working from home, and it got even. You kind of already get the point. It's getting worse and worse. Uh, I'd work my normal shift, and literally every single night, uh, whenever I would like clock out for the night, I would put up, just make sure make sure you're dressed and whatnot, because I'm sure we all know what working from home is like. You can just wear whatever the hell you want. Just make sure, just get dressed, put on my shoes, and I would go to the liquor store just like every, well, I used to go every night to the liquor store, and I would get like that 375 milliliter glass bottle of the bourbon I was drinking, but I was drinking more now to the point I needed a fifth of what I was drinking. A fifth of Knob Creek is usually what I would drink, or the bourbon I would drink. Um, so at this point, I was probably drinking probably 400 milliliters every night, uh, and it went all that pretty much like that every single night up until I got laid off in September. Um, and that really fucking sucked. I mean, they gave me, I can't remember the name of, or what the hell you call it. Like, they would pay me for so many weeks, since they were laying me off or whatever. And I was unemployed at that time for the next 6 months. And my alcoholism just got worse and worse. I was so fucking devastated by this because I worked my ass off at this at this job, even though I was hungover every fucking day. Uh, thank God I wasn't doing anything physical, because I don't think there's any way I could have done a physical job and been as hungover as I was some of those days. And yeah, that was and pretty much once that happened, I like I said, 6 months unemployed, uh, and it just it got worse. It got worse and worse. I don't know how else to put it. Uh, which it got so bad at one point that I had literally contemplated killing myself. Or just about every day. It was just like I'd wake up, just feel like shit, and just think about like what if I just killed myself? Like, what if I hung myself? Like, why the fuck not? What's stopping me from doing that? Just the most destructive fucking thought process ever. Um, and that's kind of basically where it went up through late February, early March was probably where it got really bad, and I don't I never wrote a suicide note. I got really fucking close to it. I got really close to writing one and having a plan. I never did. Uh, I remember I went out and I bought the rope that I was going to use because I had planned on hanging myself. I just hadn't fully come up with the plan or the suicide note at the time to actually go through with it. And that's basically about as low as I got. And at this point, I was getting really, really fucking drunk on these nights. Uh, like I'm talking like I know like a lot of people say like, oh, I got like blackout drunk every night. I wouldn't say I got that every night, but I definitely got drunk enough to the point most of these nights that yeah, I could say I definitely had some blackout nights where I just wake up the next day and I don't remember anything from the previous night, or at least up until a certain point where it just cuts off and I'm just like, I don't remember anything I did. I don't remember any games I played or anything like that, or just like any videos or anything I did. I I couldn't remember anything during that time. But getting into the middle of March and late March, it started to change. I got lucky. Uh, I was able to uh, get a job that my oldest brother had open. Granted, it was long ass drive there and back every 5 days a week, but hell, at least it gave me something with some money um, to support myself and also just give me something and try to get out of that fucking cycle at that point. In which something else I forgot to mention is that uh, around probably December or January, going in from 2020 to 2021, I did try to actually stop drinking, and like I said, it's really hard. Um, Withdrawal's a bitch. It sucks so much, and even at this point, it compared nothing to the earlier times I tried quitting. I'm talking at this point, like I could not. Sleeping is impossible at this point, or the point that I'm at around December or January 2021. Um, just like the nights I would not drink, just constant night sweats, uh, just insomnia out the ass, and any sleep I did get, just straight up nightmares. It was, or just like the most vivid dreams that made you not want to sleep, but at the same time you so desperately crave to sleep because you're so sleep deprived. And every single time you're just like, these withdrawal symptoms, they suck ass. I don't want to deal with this. I'd rather just keep drinking. You know, eh, it's it's really it's really hard to deal with. And I I don't know how I got through it. I really don't. It's a mystery to me because like I said, it was kind of on and off thing. Um, and I knew I had to stop at this point because one thing or one of the things that I were like kind of a wake up call. There's if you know where your liver is located, um, if you're an alcoholic, you probably know where it's located because you probably have felt it due to uh, the discomfort or pain that you might have in that region where your liver is located. Because that's basically I could definitely feel it, and it was not my liver was not happy with me. Uh, as I felt that sort of I wouldn't say it was like it's not a sharp pain. It's more like a dull aching pain where it would be. And at that point, I knew I had to stop. If I kept going, it's just going to progressively get worse and worse. And it's there's kind of a certain point where if you mess up your liver enough, there's no going back. There's absolutely no going back. I mean, you could get a liver transplant, but but that requires you to be put on a waiting list in order to get one, and you don't want to get in that situation ever. Um, but yeah, I somehow managed to get out of the cycle at this new job. It was, um, I think the main thing that helped me out is that it was really physical. So a lot of the times I would come home from work and I would just be completely exhausted. I didn't feel like drinking, which was quite refreshing, sort of, to just be able to go home and, if you can get through that first week of withdrawals, it definitely does get easier, but still you're dealing with some of the more psychological effects of withdrawal even after that first week. Um, so, yeah, I worked at that job for about 3 months, and basically, I did drink occasionally. I didn't drink. I went from drinking every night to drinking on the weekends. Is mainly whenever I would drink, and basically the last time I did have any alcohol was it was like the last week that I worked there. Uh, I believe it was the second to last or the night before my last day. Uh, I drank. I didn't drink nearly as much. I don't know if my tolerance got reset, but it felt like it was taking less to get the same effect. I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing, but me drinking in general was bad. I shouldn't have done it, honestly. But since then, I've been free for 3 months, and whatnot. Um, I hope to stay sober from now on. That's kind of the goal. Uh, and just pray nothing, or just hope nothing bad makes me fall back into that sort of hellish cycle of just drinking every night. Because that is, there's just no words I can describe how shit those just, I basically wasted 3 years of my fucking life. Um, just doing that. Uh, and I guess since we're kind of come full circle here, um, I'm sure some of you are thinking like, why didn't you get help? Why didn't you go to it's called inpatient? Is that what it's called or whatever? Outpatient? I can't remember. Why didn't you go to rehab or anything like that? Well, rehab is fucking expensive, and the thing I was really scared about when it came to rehab is like, sure, I might have my job now, but say I had health insurance uh, back with that IT job, but say like, you know, I go to rehab and I get out, say, however many days later, who's to say, that company wants me back. And who's to say, if my insurance is even going to cover all of it, or even, any of it or anything like that. I know you could probably like call ahead and see like whether or not somebody or a rehab center accepts your insurance and whatnot. Doesn't mean they're going to cover all of it though. And pretty sure rehab's pretty damn expensive. So it was more or less. I wish it was, you know, it's kind of hard to explain, um, and whatnot. In which, I did say I did end up going to the doctor in 2020. Around that early March period, or yeah, early March 2020, and whatnot. And apparently that was the only solution they had, was just go straight to rehab, and whatnot. Which I feel like there's got to be other options other than rehab. Maybe rehab's just the most successful thing. I don't know. Uh, I guess compared to other things, it probably is. But I mean, after searching online and whatnot, there are other things you can try yourself, uh, or you can talk to your doctor about it. You could try tapering, which is gradually, say you have your baseline alcohol consumption and you slowly bring your consumption down. Um, that's something else I did try, uh, once I got, into that late 2020, early 2021 time frame whenever I was trying to stop drinking. Uh, but the hardest part was the withdrawals and just trying to stay off of it and not have to deal with that. Uh, and just like each time you try stopping, it's almost like twice as hard. It's one of those things. It feels like you have to experience it because there's no way in hell I can explain it to, it being, you know, eh, you'd have to experience it because there's no way I'm doing justice by explaining it and giving the full coverage of how awful it was. So, um, there is that, or you could try, if I remember right, there's a thing called naltrexone, I think. There was a TED talk from some woman, I can't remember who she is, but she mentioned that that's what she used to help her get off of it. You could talk to your doctor about that. In which, just also as a clarification, I'm not a medical professional. That's why I say talk to your doctor in these situations. So, not saying you should try these things, uh, off of my account. Talk to your doctor if you can. Uh, and I don't know if they would recommend. They might just straight up say go to rehab. I don't know. I feel like it kind of depends on the doctor that you have. So that's, I think about everything. It's, or at least all the basic stuff. Uh, I didn't go into 100% everything, but if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'll try my best to respond. Um, yeah, I don't think I really have anything else here, so, um, yeah. So that's been my story. Hopefully somebody gets something out of it. Uh, and we'll just kind of go from here, and hopefully I stay sober. So, uh, yeah. Goodbye, everybody.